This year can be earmarked as challenging at best. It's a year that has highlighted all that we potentially have taken for granted working in this incredible cultural and creative industries context. It has also reminded us of how central this work is to all of our lives, how we live, how we interact, how we access insights, and how we connect with one another. With the Reimagined Sector Recovery initiatives, we call upon you to dream big, to reimagine process, practice, and to enable the outcomes that are needed so that we can build back better. We know that the cultural and creative industries can help rebuild our resilience, our communities, our global connections, and our economy. This is the call to action we had in mind. We hope that this investment can provide the time, resources, and space needed for the sector to lead and be self-determined in the continued strength and prosperity of the cultural and creative industries. A short overview. Applications close at 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time on the 23rd of February 2021. The total investment of $2 million is generously supported by the Sydney Maya Fund. We're offering two streams: cultural and creative solutions for applications of up to $50,000 and industry collaborations for applications of up to $100,000. You'll find the links to the guidelines and the FAQs at the start of the chat stream. I now ask the team to join me so that it becomes a little more exciting and so that we can expand further on the intention of this funding opportunity and go through the application process. So Cara, Amrit, Trish and Adrian, if you could please turn on your video. Thank you. So Cara, can I ask you to introduce yourself, and then Trish, and then Amrit, and then Adrian?
Sure. Good afternoon or good morning if you're tuning in from the Territory or WA in particular. My name's Cara Kirkwood. I am the head of Combined Arts. I haven't been at the council for very long, but it's very exciting to be here. I am a Mandandangi Bidjara Mythica woman from Queensland. I am brown-skinned with short black hair, a few silver foxes, and I'm sitting in a room with a blackboard behind me, of which all profanities have been erased. I am excited to be here. I think that's all I need to say at this moment. I'll hand it forward.
Thank you, Trish.
Thanks, Cara. Thanks, Jade. Hi, everyone. I'm Trish Ajay, and I'm calling in today from Bidjigal country in the beautiful eastern part of Sydney. I'm the head of First Nations Arts and Culture at Council. My family hails from Wathathi country in East Cape York in Queensland and Mabiok Island in the Torres Straits. So I'm really happy to be here as well, and I'll now pass on to Amrit. Thanks.
Thank you, Trish. Hello, everyone. My name is Amrit Gill. I'm the Director of International Development here at the Australia Council, and I am calling in from Gadigal country in Sydney. I'm sitting in a room with a white and pale green background. I have dark skin and curly brown hair that has been tied back, and I'm wearing a black shirt with no sleeves and tie-dyed pink and blue and white on the shoulders. Very excited to see what sort of outcomes these initiatives will have for the sector. So I'm looking forward to the discussion today. Thank you, Adrian.
Great, thanks, Amrit. And hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Adrian Burnett. I'm the head of dance at the Australia Council. I'm a Caucasian male, pale skin with short brown hair, and I'm wearing horn-rimmed glasses, and I'm sitting in front of a fairly long and cluttered bookshelf. And it's great to have you with us.
Thanks, Jean. Thank you. So this funding opportunity supports ideas that will be developed between May 2021 and the end of June 2022. I touched on this earlier, but the opportunity is a bit different to other grants that are offered through the Australia Council. And rather than me continuing to talk, I'm going to ask my colleagues to provide some thoughts on what you feel separates this funding model from other core grants that Council offers. Cara, I'll throw to you.
Thank you. Look, and as I mentioned, I'm here quite new, so I'll say this with my very short stayed lens on for this session. And it's, I suppose the thing that I'm most excited about is I'm hoping that it's a less arduous application process for folks. I think even everyone across the board, including many people at Council, recognise the ongoing struggle it is to continue to apply to various funding streams around the country. And I think what we've tried to do with this is take out some of the pain of having a very long and laborious application process. So that's one thing I think that I hope makes a difference. And I certainly think I'm sharing an opinion when I say that all of us at Council would be keen to hear your feedback as to whether that's the case for you or not. I also think, and look, community and cultural development is under my combined arts hat, so forgive the passion for CACD here. But I also think that this particular opportunity really goes to the heart of trying to extend and showcase impact moving forward. And they're the two things that I'm thinking about off the top of my mind. I know that we've got a few people on the panel, so I might throw to somebody else in this instance to have their say as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Adrian, what do you think?
Thanks, Cara. Thanks, Jade. Look, I think it's a really exciting way for us to test a new kind of methodology, if you like. It's, as Cara said, it's a lighter touch, I think, in terms of the mechanics of the application process, the opportunity to pitch your ideas in a really lively and dynamic way. I think is exciting. It's something we've wanted to test for quite some time. Obviously, there's a great deal of thinking that needs to happen before we get to that point. But we know through the sector consultations that we've just completed that there are many, many great ideas out there and some really exciting and innovative thinking that's happening. And so we're looking forward to hearing about your ideas in that way. I think this is a great opportunity to show a proof of concept. Perhaps I think it's very much a directed and strategic opportunity for Council to really address some of the gaps that we're seeing in the sector. And I think it's also a really fantastic opportunity and a little bit different from our normal grants in terms of the cross-disciplinary or cross-industry opportunities and things that we're hoping will come forward. So I think it's over to Trish.
Thanks, Adrian. Yeah, I totally agree with what Cara and Adrian have said. So really sort of looking at almost an easier process, I guess, in terms of applying for sector recovery initiatives. So really sort of considering looking at the gaps that we see in the sector, a lot of the sort of challenges and gaps we heard from the sector consultation sessions earlier this year as well. But really looking at that sort of, I guess, longer strategic direction around the types of projects that could fulfill these kind of challenges and needs over the next couple of years. Also, you know, being brave and looking at new ways forward in terms of recovery. We've had a moment, we've had this, you know, this disruption. We've had a moment to really sort of think about how we might move forward as a sector and come together in that sort of collective effort, working with our colleagues in the arts sector, but also, as Cara and Adrian said, looking at other industries and sectors, how we might collaborate on new models, research that could better support sustainability for the future in terms of the Australian arts and cultural sector. And I think I'll leave it there and pass it over to Amrit. Thanks.
Thank you, Trish. Building on what my colleagues have just said, I think this is a really great opportunity to look beyond a single creative project or a single moment in time and think collectively about what you as players in the sector feel you need to develop or you need to shift or change. And think about what that means in the context of a sector recovery beyond COVID-19. So whatever the big ideas are, whether they are about breaking structures or looking at new models or forging new pathways, which we know are so essential for our sector to remain strong, addressing imbalances or inequities, this is a time to do it collectively. And that's the great opportunity that sits within this particular initiative, that it is that blue sky thinking, that big thinking about change and step change, and how you as a sector can lead that as opposed to the council leading it. And I think that that is the real opportunity before us with this funding. Thanks, Jade.
Thanks, everyone. Just encouraging folks to keep popping your questions in. There'll be opportunities for us to answer those as well. Adrian, could you talk a little bit about what you hope the sector recovery initiatives will ultimately achieve?
Yeah, sure. Look, I hope it builds some greater resilience in our sector. I mean, I think we clearly have a very resilient sector after the year that we've had. But I'd love to see some of those learnings built into that future planning. I talked a little bit before about addressing some of the gaps that we knew were already there and that probably have been highlighted through this kind of challenging year. I think we're a sector that is known for innovation. So I'm really hoping that we see some really innovative projects thinking that idea around collaborations. And a lasting legacy, I guess, for me is something that, you know, it's ongoing. So this idea of sharing it back, this outward facing approach and sharing the findings back to the rest of the sector and being really open and transparent about that. So I think that helps to build that legacy and, you know, that really cross-disciplinary, cross-art form kind of approach. So I think, you know, there's multiple benefits there for multiple sectors. And I think it's really exciting, and I think there's quite a lot of things that come through the grants program that just don't get an opportunity to flourish and see the light of day. So I'm really hoping that some of those ideas that have been bubbling along can really come out and be supported.
Awesome. How about you, Trish? What do you hope they'll achieve?
Yeah, thanks, Jade. I think I'd like to see, particularly sort of around First Nations engagement and, you know, seeing a more inclusive arts sector. So some of the issues that were raised again in our sector consultation sessions were really around more First Nations creative-led events, particularly looking at festivals, and also having a more sort of collective effort in terms of working with First Nations practitioners and leaders as well in the sector. I think also, you know, now's really the time to look at, while we're not traveling sort of overseas, to look at having more diverse Australian voices and stories being told, you know, across the sector, and really sort of reflecting the authentic voice of Australian culture at the moment. I think also in terms of looking at the gaps, what sort of strategic directions we might want to see fulfilled over the next several years as well. And then another point that has been raised this year, you know, we've seen that a lot of people, particularly in the south of Australia, have been engaging online. So in terms of digital inclusivity, seeing that you know, there are some remote and regional communities that have been left out of some of the national discussions because of, you know, lack of Wi-Fi or NBN or even infrastructure in terms of computers and equipment, and being able to use and engage in online forums. So really sort of seeing how we can work together to have a more inclusive digital engagement strategy and projects as well, which would be really great. and engaging sort of the younger generation to work with some of the elders in some communities who may sort of feel like they're being left behind because they can't engage in the digital space. So I think that, yeah, they're sort of the points that I would like to see achieved with the sector recovery initiatives. Thanks.
Thanks, Trish. Through to Amrit and then Cara for your hopes around what the initiatives will ultimately achieve.
Yep. So with my, I guess, international development hat on, being that we do have many restrictions on travel right now, but we've been trying to grapple as an industry with the impacts of climate change and with more responsible mobility practices. I would really love to see some deep exploration about these. That thinking's already out there in the sector, and there are some people who have been doing work, and I think there's an opportunity to really do some more sector-wide, take some sector-wide approaches to this about what is a smart way to be mobile, what is a climate responsible way to be mobile nationally and internationally. I'm also really interested in furthering all the great experimentation and testing that the sector has done this year through connecting and continuing exchange in the digital space. What are some models that can be further interrogated or built that will continue this into the future, or cement a hybrid way of doing things, knowing that the face-to-face is always going to be essential to what our sector does and what our sector provides. And then the last thing I'm really interested is looking at some very, very deep soul searching and active activity, like actual action on equity and diversity. So beyond the thinking, beyond the moral obligation or the data, actually shifting, really shifting, and how can we put some structures in place through these initiatives? How can we test them? How can we bring together parts of the sector that are doing better or have shown leadership with parts of the sector that are hungry for that change, and really make sure that our arts and cultural industry is reflective of all Australians. Thank you. Cara?
Yeah, thanks. I think I couldn't say that better myself. It's certainly one of the things that I hope that this unique opportunity sort of promotes or elevates in terms of applications. I think the other thing that I'm hoping to achieve is that this really provides a platform to, as you say, experiment with some new models or ways to consolidate and improve on traditional models that haven't really worked in that way about diversity leadership and when we look at social inclusion and equity. I think I just also wanted to address, there's a question in there about, could I clarify impact, which kind of comes to that too. People have spoken about that we're trying to kind of fill in some gaps and things. And I think the idea and notion of impact for me really comes about focusing on the process and getting it right, rather than having to stop gap or we'll do that next year, we can't really afford to do that. This is an opportunity to actually find a new way, hopefully a quicker, easier way in terms of the application process to put that idea into practice. I'm particularly thinking around diversity leadership on the back of what you're saying, Amrit. I hope that's clarified the impact question that we got through online. If it hasn't, we can keep talking about it. I think one of the other things is that I would like to see this become, hopefully, if it works out well for you guys out there and us as well, that it becomes the beginning of starting to bridge a language around how do we increase our sector's relevance outside of ourselves. I think that this is one of the interesting aspects about the industry collaborations that we could really play with. How do we create impact outside of our sector so that we don't have to keep fighting tooth and nail to be relevant for funding and so forth? I would hope to think that this kind of, that these sector recovery initiatives could go some way to kind of becoming a new model for that as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Cara. I think one of the things we've really heard through the sector consultation process as well is a real focus on resilience, survival, equity and justice, and public value partnerships and new models. And that really is what we are hoping these initiatives can reflect and provide the opportunity for people to actually go from there. What do we do? How do we get there to the, this is what we think we should do. This is how we think we can be working. These are the partnerships we think we need.